Greetings everybody, welcome to G4G here on YouTube. Today we're doing an episode of G4G News and we're talking about some of the controversy that has been swirling around CD Projekt Red's upcoming adventure next year, or venture I should say, Cyberpunk 2077. So unless you've been living under a rock this week, you'll know that there was E3 going on in the beginning of the week, and that one of the biggest, if not the absolute biggest reveal of the entire week was during the Xbox presentation. And it was when Keanu Reeves came out in the video for Cyberpunk 2077 as Johnny Silverhand, looking very John Wick-ish. And when I was watching this live at the time, I was like starting to see the goatee and the hair, and there's that little tiny flip to it that I was looking at. I'm like, is this going to be? And it's going up and up and up, and I'm like, oh my god, this is his features. And then it's his full face there, and I just sat there on my couch watching Twitch on my TV through my Xbox One going, what? Wow, what? And I was really, really excited. Now, CD Projekt Red has had some issues in its past. There have been some comments like, did you just assume my gender, which was probably really offbeat, and they've had some issues with crunch. And they decided to combat the crunch piece by the owner of CD Projekt Red going out publicly in the press stating, we are going to be better about crunch, we're going to change things and everything like that. And a lot of people said this is really a win-win situation over here, because what's happening is, by going and saying this publicly as the uppermost echelon of the company, any line manager or dev manager or asset manager, graphic manager, whatever the position is, if they're trying to get somebody to work through crunch as a forced situation, they know that that employee can say, I don't have to do this, I'm not going to get fired for this, look at what the head of the company said publicly. It's sort of a layer of protection, and it's a pillow for everybody in the company to fall back on, and that's really good, because crunch has become quite ridiculous in the press lately throughout 2019 and maybe even the end of 2018, with companies boasting of it as if it's a good thing. I don't think they realize the tremendous backlash against it. And people are talking about unionizing within the gaming industry, which could go either ways. I grew up in New York, which is a union state, and then I moved to North Carolina, which is a free-to-work state. And there are advantages and disadvantages to both. I have gone into a situation where the workers were protected by unionization, and I will admit, I was there at a young age. I was there in my early teens. I essentially, without even really knowing that much about the working world at that point in time, I just saw what visibly seemed to be a lot of loafing around, because they knew they had a bit of protection. They knew when you are unionized, it is much, much harder to dispose of you. But then again, in right-to-work states, the phrase that you hear is, if your employee doesn't like a pink shirt, they can fire you for wearing a pink shirt, and there is nothing you can do. But you can also self-terminate from the position much easier. So there are advantages and disadvantages to both ways, but unions on their face, when they're doing what they're supposed to do and they're fighting for your rights, could be a good thing within the gaming industry. Hearing that certain companies, and I believe this was BioWare, that they run 100-hour weeks during crunch, literally makes my mind shut down. I cannot comprehend where you get 100 hours of work during a week. A normal work week is, say, 40, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, with an hour lunch, at least in the States. That's 40 hours. 80 hours is double that. And that gets me thinking, so Monday through Friday, just Monday through Friday, if you're still ruling out Saturday to Sunday, that means you're working 8 to 5, taking 3 hours off, and working 8 to 5 again, taking 3 hours off. So when you put that math together, in general, that means you're working all but 6 hours of the day. That, for me, would essentially be coming home, jumping right into dinner, and then bed within like, and that's not healthy. I mean, so you would have to put it an hour back, like jumping right into dinner, waiting an hour, and then getting 5 hours of sleep, not by choice, but by force every single day. Or you lessen that load a little bit if you put Saturdays and Sundays in there, but that's like that is so hard to comprehend. Double 16-hour days, 5 days a week. I mean, that's mind-blowing. Where do you get another 20 for that? I mean, 16 hours, 8 to 8 is 12. That's another 4 hours. That's 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. 5 days of the week to get up to 80 hours if you were still having your weekends. That doesn't compute in my brain, let alone tacking on another 20 hours after that. I can maybe think of a 56-hour work week, like you're working your 8 hours on a Saturday and Sunday, and to me that seems like a fucking lot, but holy shit, 100-hour work weeks. So CD Projekt Red was like, we will make sure that people understand that it's not mandatory and they're not going to get terminated over it. Well, despite all of the goodwill that CD Projekt Red has with gamers because of Witcher 3 and Gwent and everything like that, and the hype for Cyberpunk 2077, Rock Paper Shotgun is one of among a few, and it's a limited few, sites on the web that has actually been coming down on Cyberpunk 2077 slightly. So first, on the 12th of June, a writer at Rock Paper Shotgun said that the gameplay or the gunplay was weak and that the stereotypes were unimaginative. That makes me wonder, though, however, do they realize about the creator of Cyberpunk 2077 and that these issues that are brought up with the representation of non-white characters, like I wonder if any research was done there and the realization of the dystopian setting that Cyberpunk is, who the creator of it all, the fact that somewhere in there that the main character, who is white during the demo, talks Haitian nuanced language back to the Haitians and uses the day, like, they be going this way, man, like, sort of, like, uses that back to the group called the Animals. Okay, here we are. At one point, the player character mockingly says, "And who are them?" in response to Placide's pronunciation. And I asked the main dev if he was concerned that they weren't treating certain cultures with respect. And I said, we're trying it, we're doing research. As for the Animals, you play through the game, you'll see that they are mostly not black people. It's mixed. So here's a couple things about that. CD Projekt Red is set, its home base is in Poland. Europeans don't quite get the black, white, African American, Caucasian American issues that America deals with at times, because they didn't have it over there and it wasn't nearly as common, and the immigrants over there are different than what emigrates to the United States over here, and the racial breakdowns are a little bit different. One of the most evident times that I've seen, and this stuck with me because it really spoke about how Europeans and Americans deal with issues of race and racism and the problems that arise from it. Way, way back, one of the earliest seasons of Road Rules, there were two Americans on there who were African American, and there was a white guy from Norway or Sweden. I think he was from Sweden, and he became very, very good friends with the American guy who was African American on there. They became super tight. They were like really good friends. They palled around. They did everything together. He got used to how that guy spoke. He got used to the language that he used, the verbiage, the intonation. And one day when they were on their Winnebago bus thing, he used the N-word ending in the A back to his friend because he didn't know. He had zero concept. He was tabula rasa. He was babe in the woods, blank slate, Encino Man being woken up after hundreds of thousands of years later, really not knowing what he had just done because he heard his good friend that he had no ill will against, no malice against this guy, and he just used a phrase back to him. The girl, who might have been named Ariana, I forget, heard him use this and had a violent reaction to it and hauled off and slapped him, and she got thrown off of that season, got replaced. Now, I don't know if she ever really apologized, if anything got explained, but he was incredibly innocent because he just didn't know. An example in my life of just being completely innocent and not knowing, my friend Angelo, when I was in high school, his parents were off the boat Italian. So he was like first generation Italian American, and his parents were both Italian. And he knew Italian pretty well, and he was well versed in it, and I would often pick up phrases and things in Italian, and there were words and things that he used in slight songs and everything like that. And I was helping him clean out his garage one summer, and we came across one of those record players in a stereo cabinet that has the legs. It looks like a bench, but then you open up the middle section and it has a record player in there with a stereo. And the sides are speakers and everything. And it's usually AM, FM, perhaps cassette, record player, at least at this time. Now there are sort of retro things that look like that, including smaller versions of it, but this was one of the originals. So we pop on a record and we plug it in and we're listening to it. And the beat sounds exactly like this phrasing that Angelo had sung / said before, Stuga, 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 Stugats. And I was like, hey, this kind of sounds like... And I started singing it, and I could see Angelo's about a good 15 feet away from me, and he just starts going white, and he starts charging across the driveway into the garage where I'm listening to this record, and his mother is about 5 feet to my left. And he comes charging from the driveway towards the shadow of the garage, and he's like, no. I'm like, and I'm just saying, because I have no idea what's going on. I didn't know that what I was saying in Italian 3, 4, 5 feet away from his mother was suck, suck, suck my dick in Italian. And that's why he was charging across the driveway like Ferdinand the Bull, trying to get me to shut up. But it was too late. I had sung the complete phrase, and his mother is just kind of hanging her head laughing, and he's like grabbing me out of the garage, almost like dragging me down the driveway. I had no idea. It was completely innocent. So I think that situation that happened in Road Rules is a prime example that Europe European countries don't always know the issues that happens in the States when it comes to matters of black and white, African American and Caucasian American. And, you know, for example, if Europeans saw 1920s blackface and they were strictly European, they did not know much about American culture whatsoever. Maybe somebody that grew up on the shores of Spain the entire way and maybe saw the the nanny or the cook in a Tom and Jerry episode with the vibrant pink lips standing out against the very dark face. And you know, Americans now would be like, "Oh, that's really close to how blackface is portrayed." Would that Spanish person get it? Would they know it? Would they know the history? Would they know the modern problems of it? And that's one thing that I think needs to be given to a Polish-run company a little bit, is you sort of have to give them a tiny bit of slack on this because they just might not be as aware of it. And, you know, parroting back somebody's accent to them, I don't necessarily think is something worth outrage. Because if you're mocking somebody, you're going to mock them on something that's obvious and easy to understand that you are mocking them. You know, so one of the easiest things to do is accent. We've had several Canadians in the guild that I run for World of Warcraft, and we make references to the common Canada-isms of like, I don't know what you're talking about. We do that all the time, and we're having fun with it, and they're not violently reacting to this, that we're parroting back a Canada-ism to them. But here is a reporter who is pretty clearly what kind of looks like David Grohl, a long-necked David Grohl over there, really getting upset that the Haitian dialect is being parroted back to one of the Haitians. Plot, context, scenario. That's all that's happening here. And in this demo, the player is white, but they're going to have a robust player creation system, more on that a little bit later, that you could be anything. So you might be Latino looking, you might be black looking, you might be white, you might be male, you might be female, you might be other, saying this back to them. And maybe you wouldn't even do that if you were trying to go a complete no-kill route, and like if this was seen as pissing off the gang, maybe you would dialogue this one out if that's not what you're trying to do, and you're trying to do a no-kill run or something, which they said is possible. So this outrage from somebody who is not part of what is being made fun of is, or parodied, or parroted, depending upon how you want to look at it, is kind of ridiculous. And he's saying over here that in this section, rather typical, here it is, the corporate white man with the tie and the suit tells you the animal boys, which in the demo seem to largely be black and Haitian, and the voodoo boys are going to turn on you, and then it's right. And he says, the violent black thugs betrayed us as the corporate white man said they would. If CD Projekt are trying to subvert expectations, if the punchline is, but sometimes the thugs really are thugs, then it's not one that lands. We've forgotten that in the 2018 E3 demo, a white lady betrays the main character and has him smacked in the back of the head so that he passes out twice and thrown in a car. So again, this is twisting outrage to fit in a mold, and anything that falls outside of it is trimmed out because There's another betrayal that happens, and again, the demo character was white. That was a white on white betrayal. So they're not just purporting that these Haitians or these blacks or these African Americans are the bad guys. Other bad stuff has happened to him. And it's kind of ridiculous. And now the next one, 2 days later, over on Rock Paper Shotgun, which really makes both of these begin to seem like hit pieces. On the 14th, another editor is bringing up this picture. So some screenshots were released showing ray tracing. And one of the things that came up was this picture over here with a lady at a distance in the middle selling soda. And a kind of Blade Runner, futuristic, I mean, some of this kind of looks like it could have even been from Dead Cells, but it's that future tech punk, cyberpunk, Blade Runner kind of aesthetic going on over here. Ghost in the Shell, a little bit of the moments of Cowboy Bebop and everything like that. The shark in Back to the Future 2, the hologram shark for like Jaws 56. This time it's really, really personal, whatever. This was being highlighted as transphobic, and when you see it at this size, you're like, what? Well, apparently, when you get much, much closer, there is a definite appendage there. And as one of the reports about this was brought up, it was monster. Okay. And now this ad is being used against the game, saying that it is done to portray the androgynous nature of it. That is what we, as good communicators and psychologists, know as receiver bias. It's not sender bias, it is receiver bias. So, before I go into this kind of character a little further, I want to explain some rules and laws of engagement when it comes to communication. Receiver bias is when a message is sent out in one way or devoid of a slant or an emotion, and the receiver packages it up and attaches meaning to it that was not originally intended, or nothing was intended by the medium, the message, and the receiver just completely uses their own set of experiences and brain to attach things to it. So, I was going to use a hot dog analogy, but that could be in poor taste with that. So I will use a hamburger analogy. If the message is supposed to be a hamburger patty, it's like, this is a hamburger patty, and I hand you this hamburger patty, and that's that. If you start in your brain adding buns and condiments to it and fries and a combo meal at McDonald's, you start adding all these things to me saying and handing you a hamburger meat patty and nothing else, that is called receiver bias. That is your experience that when you get a burger, it has a bun on it, it has ketchup on it if you're in the north, it has ketchup and mustard in the south, maybe it has pickles, maybe it doesn't, onions, whatever, and likely it is your burger preference. Maybe you will conjure an image of a McDonald's or a Burger King burger in a commercial and how neat they look, which in reality are extremely fake. That is what's called receiver bias. And within the last year or two in politics, we saw something like this where I believe it was Pelosi was doing a stream or a video in her house, and people looked behind her on a kitchen cabinet, mainly Tomi Lahren, and saw a black-faced kid eating a watermelon slice. That is what they saw in the upper cabinet region over there, and they're like, look, 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 she's racist. She has this racist thing up there, this horrible, offensive to black people item up there. Old school. She's old enough that she could have procured this at a time where civil liberties and civil rights had not really taken place, blah, blah, blah. It turned out not to be that thing. It was actually, I believe, something tribal in nature. But Tomi Lahren, seeing that video, perceived it as that horrible ceramic figure that she went around saying it's what it was. Well, it turned out not to be. So when Tomi viewed that video and saw that item on that kitchen cabinet, that was receiver bias. It was a blurry image that you couldn't really tell what it was, and without even attempting to zoom in on it and zoom, enhance, region 1, A3, zoom, or as Phil Kinsebin would say from Harvey Birdman, zoom, enhance, aha, everybody get in here. It wasn't actually what she thought it was, and in reality, it spun against her very badly, because now it's like, now who's the racist after all? If you know what that item is, and most of us did not, that goes to show you that it was not Pelosi being racist. It was actually Tomi Lahren, because she saw what she wanted to see. And if that was in her brain, and that was her Rorschach test or her inkblot test, it shows you something, and that's called receiver bias. It was a blurry, nondescript image. You couldn't make it out what it was, and she used receiver bias to say it is this watermelon eating blackface doll. When you, working at Rock Paper Shotgun, or anybody viewing either this image at that far or this image, you make up your own message from this. Unless it is spelled out to you when you were viewing it, or you were given context before or after it, it's called receiver bias. And that's what's happening at Rock Paper Shotgun, and that's where this unfortunate fake outrage is on this. You don't know at the time of the demo or at the time of this screenshot anything about this character. You don't know, is it a popular model in a club scene that happens in this part of town, and they are marketing a Madonna to people who listen to Madonna records, a RuPaul in a drag district or something. You know nothing other than this is a person on a lit up billboard. And you make your own assumptions at this point if you are not given any context. And those assumptions are receiver bias. And here it is, it's said here. It is absurdly unrealistic, obviously. If you're into girls with monster dons, all the power to you. But it's not uncommon for the advertisers to embellish. It's their job. Still, while these scans seem like a conscious choice, it seems more like somebody who only understands trans women through fetish porn. Let's roll with it. The message, trans women are objects for you to enjoy, is completely unfiltered. They're saying there's nothing stopping the audience for taking it at face value. When the audience sees the game at the time, there will be context to it. And the title of this article is basically saying that the in-game context doesn't matter if it's contributing to issues right now. Yeah, it does. Because you have the developer sitting there saying you can make a trans character during character creation if you want to. And at that level, if I was scrolling through this article and I was illiterate and I can only read pictures and not words and sentences so good, that's a joke. I wouldn't immediately assume anything about this, and even at this level of zoom, I'd be like, wow, there's something going on there, but that's a weird, like, armor thing. Like, I wouldn't immediately jump to what I could clearly see here, as they said, is a monster dong. But the creator of this image, this ad in the game, has actually come out and said, this is what is going on in this area. Corporations exploit everything, and in this world, this is a beautiful person, and they are exploiting the beauty to sell the soda the way you would exploit the beauty of a car model at a car show, or sexy women to sell beer. The artist is paid this screen in the ads over here a compliment by saying this isn't something ugly or unattractive or abnormal. Why would it be here if it is? They're using something very commonplace in this world to sell a soda. So it is being viewed as a positive. Now, it's bad that it's exploitive, and that is obviously the major trend of the game, is the mega corporations, and that is the message that they're sending. But they're also telling you that this is a good thing being used to sell. So this outrage that this is a bad thing is not really that strong. Yes, CD Projekt Red has gotten themselves in trouble before, and if you loop it into this, it does look bad on them. But if you just deal with this situation in a vacuum, how bad is it? Now, a lot of people who've been covering this topic have sort of forgotten the history that we've gone through in gaming, and I want to give you guys a little bit of other context to consider when viewing this particular picture over here. I want to draw your attention to Cowboy Bebop and the character of Gren. Gren was a character that Faye Valentine meets towards the middle of the series, playing jazz in a club. She gets extremely sick after running around avoiding men all day and giving them a good what for, as Faye Valentine is known to do. And Faye runs into Gren playing sax at this club, and she goes home with him not because he's after her or anything, but because he's being nice and just trying to take her to, get warm and everything. Vicious leaves a message on Gren's answering machine. She's like, oh shit, and she busts into the bathroom where he's showering and utters the famous phrase, wait a minute, which one are you? And that is because Gren has boobs, but is also a man. It's a side effect of the drug trade that it was part of and becoming addicted to red eye within the series, which has caused gynecomastia, too much estrogen, he's grown boobs. So here's an example of where we sort of dealt with a character like this before and nobody batted an eye. Yeah, obviously Cowboy Bebop is anime, it is Japanese, and you find this in a lot. This is a common trope when you're looking at media that comes from Japan. If you go to the Robotech anime series, and the third Robotech series that hit TV, so you had the first one, which was like Rick Hunter, that's him over here with Rick and Lisa, and the Macross Saga, the SD1. You had season 2, which I absolutely despised and don't watch and didn't watch and skipped and would probably never watch. No, I'm sorry, that's season 2. Well, no, that might be season 3 over there. But anyway, I was not a fan of season 2. Season 3 was also very good, the Invid Invasion. Well, one of the characters, Lancer, in that series, tries to basically hide in plain sight by being a female singer. And I think it's Yellow Dancer? Yeah, Yellow Dancer. So it's a he who performs as a she on stage to hide his identity, and is, again, that kind of ambiguous, androgynous character, Lancer and Yellow Dancer. So what happened here, what would happen if people started watching season 3 of Robotech all of a sudden again? Would this be a major issue, or would it just be accepting of the character, and this is just what Lancer did to survive? Lancer always fights with the rest of his team as Lancer, the guy, does that mean that the women were only good for art, but when it comes time to the fighting, the dude stuff, you have to be a dude? Like, that's something that could be read into this at this point in time, but it was never, that was not how it was ever portrayed in the series. And finally, in gaming, but also gaming from Japan, Chrono Cross. So Chrono Cross had a character called Nikki that bore some resemblance to Nikki Sixx from Motley Crue, but it was never really thrown out there. But here's Nikki from Chrono Cross. Kind of, sort of, semi-bondage, and again, like, it's obviously male, there is no shirt, but you look at the hair, you look at the face, the makeup, the boa, the glam nature of it, it is slightly androgynous, a little bit Ziggy Stardust, which has come back into play as Moira. In Overwatch, they share similar aesthetics. Nikki is a rocker in this particular game. His instrument or his weapon in combat is an instrument. It's a guitar. Nikki was considered a sex symbol similar to Prince. I mean, Prince was not the most masculine of singers, yet was just considered extremely drop dead sexy by women. So again, here in everything that we've seen from Gren and Lancer and Nikki, it was never thought of as something bad. And if you just happen to see Nikki in a modern advertisement for Chrono Cross, if Chrono Cross was coming out now and you're seeing the trailer and there's like 3 seconds of the camera panning by Nikki performing somewhere in the game, which he does. He partners off with the game's version of mutants, and acts as a bridge between, I think they may have been called mystics in the game, the mystics and the humans and everything like that. You would be like, oh, is this game promoting bondage? I mean, look at this androgynous character. Is this a trans man or what? It is something that never happened in the 90s when this came out, and everybody accepted Nikki for what he was. He was a rocker based maybe on hair metal bands that grunge was just beginning to usurp control of in mainstream music. And I mean, you go back and look at Britney Fox and you look at Cinderella in their early days and Poison during their first 2 albums. I mean, there was enough hairnet to float the moon if it wanted to. I mean, it was kind of very, very androgynous looking through all of that, and that is clearly what Nikki takes a lot of its aesthetics from. Although there is a little bit of that there is a little bit of that Titus, or Titus as I always called him, but it may be Titus from Final Fantasy X here, of the one short leg and the one long leg. So when you take these into context, nobody read into these. Nobody thought this was bad. If I saw this on a Chrono Cross box, I would have literally no reaction to it. But these rock, paper, shotgun contributors, this guy is, sees this and immediately jumps to the conclusion that that is a problem. And then tries to defend, he tries to ward off what is actually rational thought, what is actually calm, relaxed people talking about this honestly and openly and without agendas and without bias, and says you don't know the context over here. Again, maybe this is a famous person, this is a club district, and this is a famous person in those clubs. Maybe this is a character that is a main character in the game. Maybe you meet this person. Maybe they become a romantic partner with you in the game. They said, sort of like the Dragon Age games, you will be able to romance characters in this. This is inclusion. This is a representation that you go back 10 years ago and you didn't see in gaming, and now you do. This is a positive step, especially if there is potentially further interaction with this person down the road and it isn't just an advertisement, which it may very well be. But if you encountered that person, they became part of your party or a romance option or something, that's inclusion. That is like, here is this person that represents what I am in life, and now they're available in a game and they're available to be romance, which is what I would do in real life. That's inclusion. That's a good thing. So it would immediately have the knee-jerk reaction on seeing this advertisement that it's bad. Until the context is presented, this is receiver bias. This isn't sender bias. This isn't CD Projekt Red putting an image out there with an agenda, with a story behind it, with a political message behind it. It's just a person in an advertisement in a screenshot that was used. And until you know otherwise, and that's the key thing, that's all that this is. But he tries to defend that and push that away and say, no, context doesn't matter. This is a bad thing. This is a phobic thing at this point in time. No. To you it is, because that's called receiver bias. You have got something going on that makes you think this way. And you should try to figure that out yourself rather than playing it out in public on a website that you're a contributor to and trying to drum up faux rage in a game that people are incredibly hyped for and want to see. And in a world where maybe people are getting tired of this from people like him. So let me know what you think. Do you think this contributor is right? Do you think this is a bad thing? Or do you understand my point that context is everything? Especially when the creator of this ad has given you the context and it does not match with his thoughts. What do you think about receiver bias in this case? Let me know down in the comments below. I'm really interested. And I also am very interested in knowing just how hyped you are for Cyberpunk, because I'm getting more and more hyped for this game. I'm saddened that it's so far away. Similar to the Marvel Avengers game, there are two games I would like to get my hands on now, but I'll make do with Marvel Ultimate Alliance when it comes out on the Switch, which is not actually my Switch. So I will have to defer to the girlfriend if she is busy with one, but if she isn't, I would definitely like to be playing MUA 3 on there, and this is one that I would really like to come out sooner rather than later, because I'm interested in a shooter like this, because Rage didn't want to run on my PC. I'm building a new one now, and I have a copy of it, but the original install I did, I had to get my money back because it would not run. It just sat in my task manager and never launched. So let me know what you think. I'm really interested in talking to you guys on this topic. Thanks, and have a good one.